to Heroes Forge, a Heroes of the Storm podcast.
Forgers, what is up? This is episode number 28 of Heroes Forge, a community-driven podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. Just like every week in the Nexus, this is Jeff Reynolds, your show host, and I am joined by the incredibly fantastic co-host of the show, Kristen Ashton. Hello, Kristen.
Hello, Jeff. How are you doing today?
I gotta start the show with this. We got our fear in Heroes of the Storm.
We did, and I'm not scared of it. I'm actually super excited.
Oh, I know. How many weeks have we talked about this? How many heroes are out there that we want to have this fear mechanic? Gul'dan is coming to the Nexus on Tuesday. He's in the PTR right now. He's coming to the Nexus on Tuesday for the public game, and one of his ultimates is to fear players in an area of effect.
It is. It's beautiful. And it seems to be the best heroic he has, because he does have Reign of Destruction. But I think a lot of us kind of picked up on the fact that it was going to be a tad disappointing, because it's like Starfall, except it doesn't target anybody. It's like Rainer's Hyperion, but it doesn't target anybody. It's just this wide spread of things falling to the ground, and let's hope it hits somebody. Yeah. Which it probably won't.
Which it probably won't with my luck. But let me tell you what will hit is that fear. I mean, you're right. I haven't played him myself. I'm waiting for the public game, but I've seen like Kyle Ferguson played him a lot, and I saw some Chew was playing him on Twitch streaming. I mean, it looks really cool. The flavor is really cool. And the fear, we wanted it so bad. And then I can't believe that they coupled it with the next hero, and I'm thinking, are we going to be getting that res that we've been asking for all these episodes of Heroes Forge?
Are they going to cite us on Ariel's build saying this idea taken from Heroes Forge?
Gosh, you can only hope, right? What would that do for how many people would listen to our show? That would be insane. But the truth is, I mean, these are what I feel are the biggest abilities and the biggest... the biggest things that are missing from the game, and from what I hear, the fear seems to be working, right?
It does. It displaces enemies the way you want them to. It deals a bit of damage. But again, the most important part is that it sends the enemy team members running in different directions, so that if they're grouped up, which can be really, really problematic when you're facing a team that just hugs one another and you have nothing to stop it, you can lay a fear in the middle of that, break their ranks, and then pick them apart.
Yeah, pick them apart as they're as they're running away. I mean, it's Warcraft. It has Warcraft written all over it, right? And I was listening to Into the Nexus, and again, Kyle and Garrett have some really, really great ideas about this. And Kyle was talking a lot about how, it's not the fear that we know from Warcraft, where people just run around in random directions and you don't know where you're going or what's happening, and you happen to just run into the boss and die or something like that. There takes tactic to it, and that is exactly what I love. What they do with Heroes of the Storm, where they take these abilities we know so well and make them relevant in the game. And I can't wait to see what they do with Resurrection, because that's on the horizon.
Exactly. And there's the thought that it's not going to be a full resurrection either. It might be timed. Or there's the potential where they are res, but they're not res to full health. So something that it's not OP, so you don't have to kill a hero twice, but you still have to make sure you trigger it before you actually commit.
Ooh, I didn't know that. That's really cool. I can't wait to find out. I mean, some great abilities, like I said, on the horizon for all of these new heroes that are coming out, and who knows what will be next. So excited. And it's taken me back too. I mean, it's taken me back to Gul'dan and all this, and I know the Warcraft movie just came out, but I'm stoked for Gul'dan because it's a part of, what I know of as Warcraft. And I mean, tons of stuff. It's tons of stuff. The next thing on our notes here is to talk about Pokemon Go, because it is blown up, hasn't it?
It's nothing but Pokemon Go on my Twitter feed. But the best part is there are hilarious pictures today. Like one of my friends, for instance, she's working on becoming a minister. and her husband has Pokemon Go, and so she has a little Pidgey on her arm when she's in her robes waiting to go up and give one of her practice sermons.
I mean, it's crazy. It's just so crazy seeing all these people walking around. I was outside the other day and people are walking around, and a guy actually had like the Ash Ketchum hat on, walking around trying to find these Pokemon in the grass and stuff, and it's taken off like wildfire. It's just crazy. I know that has nothing to do with World of Warcraft, but still, I just thought we should say something about it because it's become this massive thing. And there's tons of games out there that are bringing me back lately. Like this weekend I got to play Rock Band for the first time, the newest Rock Band, and it just brought me back to college. And then of course the Red Dead Redemption came out again, remastered quote unquote for Xbox One, so now you can play it through an Xbox 360 emulator on your Xbox One. And I mean, all these games, there's just so many games I want to revisit. And, I'm hoping that in the future, there are some Blizzard games that they decide to remaster and re-release. You know what I'm saying?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping of all the games they do that with the original StarCraft, because there are things I'd like to see, like quicker ways to end a mission. I don't even think the original StarCraft has a difficulty setting. So
I can't remember.
You go in and you either do it or you don't. And somebody who doesn't really play the RTS genre at all, I'm just sitting there. I feel like my head is barely above water. I'm just going, I can do this.
That's what I feel like when I jump into StarCraft multiplayer. They get rocked every single time. And I know a lot of people are looking forward to seeing, there's rumor mills floating around about having a Warcraft RTS remaster and a lot of stuff. So, there's a lot of crazy throwbacks in gaming right now, which are just really cool. Before we move on to anything else, we must thank someone. We have the newest patron supporting Heroes of the Storm and supporting HeroesForge. It's DJ M. Thank you so much for becoming the latest patron of HeroesForge. You are a rock star. If you would like to become a patron of our show and help support us and help us create new content for everyone, head on over to patreon.com/HeroesForge, and over there you can check out all the awesome patron goals that we have. And thank you again to DJ M for supporting us. All right, Kristen, I think it is time. Let's forge.
Let's forge.
All right, everyone, if this is your first time listening to Heroes Forge, this is how the show works. Each week, we pick a character from one of the Blizzard gaming universes out there, and we imagine what the character would look like if it was in Heroes of the Storm. Kristen builds a kit, I build a kit, and we talk through this kit, and we just kind of banter back and forth and have a great time. So, Kristen, why don't you tell all of our listeners out there who we are forging this week?
This week, we're going with yet another StarCraft character, and it is Alexei Stukov.
Another star. We are on a StarCraft high right now. We've got all these amazing StarCraft characters, and I think Alexei is, one of the most badass, just really, really cool character in the game, right?
It is. And initially, not knowing much about Alexei, I thought he was a bad guy. But it turns out he wasn't a bad guy at all. He was a really cool commander in the army. He did some heroic things, and then he was betrayed, like so many heroes in the Blizzard universe. And then he became infested, which is even cooler. And then he joins up with Kerrigan. So he was a very interesting person to take on.
Absolutely. And this was your pick this week. And when you sent it to me, the first thing I thought of my original StarCraft days with Alexei and him in the game. And he's got such a thick backstory. Kristen, give us a little bit of an introduction to him and his place in the StarCraft universe.
Father of 4, winner of the Crux de Valor, and holder of no less than 3 bronze Gamadons, an award only given to members of the United Powers League, Alexei Stukov seemed destined for a decorated, comfortable life in a position of militaristic power. Unfortunately for him, he was one of the first to see Samir Duran for the traitor he truly was. His dear friend Gerard de Gaulle was tricked by Duran into believing that Stukov was a traitor, getting de Gaulle to find and shoot Alexei. Only with Stukov's dying words did de Gaulle finally realize that he had been played by Duran as well. Played off by the media as one of the many heroic deaths on Char, Stukov's body was shot into space. Then things got interesting. Found by the cerebrate Kaloth, Stukov was resurrected as an infested human leader. In time, he gained control of his own brood and was given a healing serum to once again return him to his human form. He was then handed over to the Mobius Foundation so researchers could study the cure. Once it became clear that this cure was not permanent, his body became a testing ground for cruel experimentation. Finally, breaking free, Stukov made his way to Kerrigan, where he pledged his loyalty with the hopes of bringing down those that had done so much harm to him, a goal that was ultimately fulfilled.
What a life, right? I mean, this dude has gone through all of it.
He has, and I just can't help but wonder what happened to his 4 kids. They tell us he's a dad of 4 kids. What happens to them?
Oh, StarCraft 3.
Stukov's revenge.
The Stukov family revenge. Oh, yeah. Alexei, just his character alone in this game goes through so many different points. I mean, it goes through, pride and then downfall and then revenge and then getting revenge and switching sides and changing teams and, this whole thing. I mean, it's insane. It's, we say about these Blizzard characters, a lot of them, they die and they get brought back to life and then they do this and they do that. But this is like to the extreme, right?
It is so much so in that I had a very hard time actually understanding his backstory, because StarCraft is a very, very interesting thing to read up on lore-wise, because it's very technical. Whereas, of course, Warcraft is far more fantastical. And I find myself clinging to or connecting with the more fantastical stories easier in the Warcraft universe than I can with the more technical StarCraft, which is interesting because they're both fantasy, even though one is more science fiction than higher fantasy. So I think I had to read his background at least 5-6 times, and even then I can't even tell you if what I said was entirely correct.
No. I 100% agree with you. It's a perfect way to say it, is that, Warcraft, that's a world where I feel more comfortable too, because it is that fantasy world, just like you said. And, StarCraft, it is a lot about, the dates that these battles took place and who was on what side and what was going on, that kind of relates to the time period that these games, or the quote-unquote time period that these games take place, and that's just too cool. I mean, it's really, really neat, but it takes a lot of, concentration to be able to. And when you said that you had read it multiple times, I have to laugh because I did too, reading through. And it's so funny because you go on YouTube and you can look up, a character, even up to, when we did Leroy Jenkins, you could type that into YouTube and search for lore, and there'll be 15 videos about the lore of Leroy Jenkins, where someone like Alexei, you've got to read the wikis and the pages and the pages and the pages of everything that people have poured so much heart and soul into creating, and it gets to be a lot.
You're exactly right. And especially when you point out it's very much like a history lesson. It feels like all of the emotion has been removed so that it's a sterilized rundown of the dates he was alive, what he did, what battles he was a part of, who he was betrayed by, and then he did this, but he didn't do it. And at some point he was here, but at the same time he was over there. And maybe it's just one of those things where you need to have played the game in order to truly, truly grasp this character's story.
Yeah, even then, I mean, you've got to go back and play it again. Because I had played it, and, I vaguely remember Alexei from the game. So when I go back and watch these videos and everything, it reminds me of it, but still, it's a history lesson. Let's start our own history lesson here. Let's start talking about what Alexei could be if he was in Heroes of the Storm. Let's start with role classifications. I got a wild and wacky one over on my side that I thought, you know what? Alexei in Heroes, when you talk about, how he was hailed as a brilliant tactician and all of this, supporting everything, I couldn't help but think that he might be a support.
Nice. I have to agree with you there, but I'm taking it a little further. I'm going support and assassin, but we'll get to that once we talk about the trait.
Oh, a deadly support is always really, really welcome in my book over in Heroes. I mean, really, really welcome. I love that because a lot of the supports that I play currently, like Morales and stuff, you can't do anything with your abilities other than push people around.
Yeah, you can really tick people off. I mean,
Yeah.
think of all the things that are insulting in Heroes, being killed by a Morales grenade. There's nothing that'll make me rage harder.
Yep, and like we always say, there's nothing that feels better than killing somebody with a Morales grenade. Let's move on to traits. Let's hear your support assassin trait for Alexei.
Okay, so for Alexei, I wanted to work in the fact that he was human, he was infested, he was human again, and then he was infested again, this back and forth. So his trait, I've gone with something called infestation. So each time Stukov dies, he comes back more and more infested. Full infestation happens after 5 deaths. As he becomes more infested, he loses the strength of his healing ability but gains damage, eventually transitioning from full support to full assassin across these deaths.
Ooh, that is so unique. I really like that. Okay, so I'm sure we'll hear more about the basic abilities, and I definitely want to get to that because that sounds such a great idea. So do you think that if this was implemented in the game, something like this, the first thing I think about is the people that are going to go in there and purposefully die so that they become the assassin version of Alexei instead of the healing version? Or do you think that with the traits, there are benefits to trying to stay alive as long as possible?
I think if he was given strong enough healing abilities, in so much that he would be a full healer like Morales, you would definitely want to use him as a healer. But at the same time, there are trolls that just will go in and die and become the only assassin. So in the end, I think he would be very much based on what the team would need.
Yeah, and that's a really cool point because what the team would need could change in the middle of the game. Maybe you have no deaths and everyone else is, dying like crazy, or maybe there's some crazy stuff going on and you decide I need to switch over to that assassin Alexei instead. Oh, there's nothing like that in the game. That is really cool. The trait on my support side is called Tactician. In the StarCraft universe, Alexei was hailed as a brilliant tactician. This will be my main focus for his build in Heroes of the Storm. He would be a support character that focused on his brilliant understanding of the battlefield tactics to aid the friendly team. His trait is activatable and allows him to pull out a futuristic tablet with the battlefield on it. When he pulls out the pad, it allows the player to see an enhanced mini-map in the same location with the current locations of all enemy minions and tower ammunition if the player mouses over the towers. Alexei is able to move while this is activated, but it only lasts for a short amount of time before deactivating.
That's really cool because we don't have a hero with a full mini-map reveal. It's all reveals that you send out yourself or you choose specific places that you want to see.
Yeah, and so maybe you could talent into like a full mini-map reveal, but I'm thinking at the very beginning so that it's not super OP, so you could see where people are and just have insane sight. You can just see where the enemy minions are, just so you can see what's going on. Maybe your lane is ahead, maybe it's not, and if there are any enemy heroes standing around them, you could see that little area too. So maybe it would give a little bit of incentive for the enemy team to not hang out by their minions if Alexei was on the opposite team.
Certainly. And then would this reveal players in bushes, and would it also reveal those that are cloaked?
I think not on either of those things. I mean, at least at the beginning of the game, you don't want to give too much power to this. It's just a trait. So I'm also seeing it useful for, I mean, we've got a huge patch coming to Heroes of the Storm, and there's a huge, buff to minions and everything that minions are doing and catapults. And so knowing where those are on the battlefield and being aware of if minions are pushing your forts, or, maybe you can't see what's going on. I tried to think about that a little bit when I created this. So not too powerful, but still gives a little edge. I mean, that's what I was looking for.
Definitely. And I like the idea of being able to see how much ammunition those enemy towers have immediately, because then you can see then if you need to stop a minion push right there, or if you can just let it sit there for a little bit because you've got the ammunition to hold it back.
Right. And like, imagine if you had a Sylvanas on your team and you could see that the enemy towers were out of ammo. Well, you wouldn't send Sylvanas to that lane. I mean, you could send someone else because she can go take the lane with the towers that are full of ammunition because she can stop them from. I mean, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of thoughts inside my crazy head about how this might work. And who knows, maybe it wouldn't work. It's still a different kind of idea. I would love the animation. Like, he pulls out this like tablet looking thing that's obviously clear, Minority Report status or whatever, Terran looking thing. And then all of a sudden in your bottom right hand corner, your mini map kind of just like becomes enhanced somehow. Maybe like a wave goes over it and like becomes enhanced, and oh, I can mouse over this and do that stuff. Nerdy, but cool.
Well, that's what we're here for. Nerdy, but cool.
That's the sub line to our show. HeroesForge, nerdy, but cool. Speaking of, let's talk about mounting abilities for Alexei here. I said, when I think of him, I imagine this World War I general out on the battlefield, just, riding a horse. So if he was going to mount, I would say he would ride like a war horse, but I would want this thing to be bigger than the normal brown horse in the game, like a Clydesdale horse or something that he can ride into the battlefield, with the hooves and everything. I just thought that would be neat.
Would it be pulling crates of beer?
Gosh, we can only hope. We can really only hope.
Chucking him out to his team. That's really all his supportability is. Brewskis all around.
Well, in some of these history lessons about Alexei, they talk about how he was really into smoking and vodka. So, I mean, we're not far off here.
There we go. Shots for everybody.
Shots for everyone. So, we could have come up with something like that, like a
liquid
debuff.
courage.
Yeah, liquid courage, or a buff. But if you take too much of that buff, you get debuffed. Oh, that's funny though. Oh, what were you thinking for his mount?
I was just thinking a small battle cruiser, because he really likes his battle cruiser, and maybe it plays that wonderful song and that he listens to as the Zerg take the Terran forces below.
Right.
It's a cigar.
Oh, that's too cool. A mini battle cruiser. That would be a cool.
Kind of like one of the Hearthstone cards or the coins.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. And I'd like to see a lot of other characters on it. I'd like to see like Raynor on it, and a lot of StarCraft Murky skin riding that battle cruiser. Come on, that's too cool. All right, let's get into basic abilities, the meat and potatoes of the show here. Let's start with Q abilities. The first basic, I'll start on this one. So my build is for support Alexei, and I didn't go any sort of infested abilities on my build. I wanted the OG Alexei over here. So he's all human in my build. So his Q is called Infantry Armor. Alexei selects a friendly hero and gives them a new ability. This ability is tied to their 1 key or subsequent keys if this key is taken, and allows them to activate an armor shield on themselves. This ability has no cooldown and does not stack. After the player activates their shield, they are able to receive this ability from Alexei again. In later talent specs, the player would have the ability to have armor level 2 that would give the player 2 charges of shield before they were able to be buffed again. So I'm imagining here that this is like Symmetra in Overwatch, where the game starts and you could just be spamming that Q key at the beginning, giving all of your friendly heroes infantry armor, which is basically a heal for them, or an armor or shield for them, that they have to activate when they think it's ready, when they think it's time, rather than you having to place it on them when you think it's time.
So what you're telling me is you're trying to place more responsibility into the hands of your teammates? Are you sure about this? Yeah, are
tell
you
you why.
absolutely sure?
I couldn't be more sure, and I'll tell you exactly why I am. Because I am tired of getting so much salt in the game for being a healer and taking one for the team and deciding to be, you know what, I'm gonna heal. Even though I hear it's the best to level up with assassins, it's the best to level up with those burst characters out there. You know what? We need a healer. I'm going to do it. We lose the game. After the game is over, I'm not saying I'm good at this game, but still, I feel like if I have over 150,000 healing on a game and somebody starts telling me that it's my fault because I didn't heal them, I start to get just a little bit tilted. So I'm like, what if a support character gave them the ability to just do it themselves?
And then they have no one else to blame. Okay, but there is the caveat that you would need to keep them with that buff. You need to keep the buff up on everybody. So how would you know which heroes would need to be buffed again versus those that still haven't used it yet?
You know, I think it might roll, because when they use it, I'm imagining it would go on a cooldown on their bar. So Alexei has to give you the ability to heal yourself. Then once you use it, it'll still be on 1, but it'll have to tick down before he can give it to you again. So kind of like that Lily heal where you're just spamming that button in a fight. I figure that when Alexei's in the battle, he's just pushing that button, so that if you come up on being able to use your shield, he can give it to you right away. Or at least that's how I picture it would play.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. And shields are so much fun. I've learned to appreciate shields. It used to be just with Sonya, but then I've started taking the shield with Vala. And honestly, it is a lot of fun. Blood for blood is cool, but having just a little bit of that extra oomph to really get in and get out and take some people down. I like shields.
Yeah, shields are pretty cool. And you know, I think that maybe my mindset is a little weird, but I just think that because he's a commander of these battles, and you know, all of this stuff that happens, that's where my mind goes with support. Not necessarily, you know, being that Morales in the game where, you know, you're providing health, but also there's other ways to support in my mind. And that's how I was trying to bring this in. So that's my first basic. What was your first basic?
I'm going with Aura. And in this one, nearby friendly units continually regenerate health so long as they're within Stukov's range. However, following the first bit of infestation, it begins trading out healing for damage. Damage dealt to enemy units.
Ooh. Okay, so tell me, how do you think this would play out? Like, are you able to lane by yourself with this? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I know in StarCraft 2, I believe, he had this regeneration aura. So he would stay nearby Kerrigan and it would keep her and any nearby units healed. So kind of a Brightwing feel, but
Okay.
instead of always healing, why can't that eventually do damage if you go down the dark path and
Right.
go to Assassin Land?
Oh, Assassin Land. I mean, that's Alexei in my mind right there. I mean, especially because you talked about that healing aura in StarCraft 2. I mean, that's really cool. I like the feel of that a lot. Very neat. What were you thinking for his second basic ability?
For this one, I'm calling Corrosive Blast, again, calling back to his unit. This attack knocks back target enemy unit while healing any friendly units in or around its path. So kind of like Uther's attack. Now, with more corruption, this does damage, and then at full corruption, it no longer knocks back, but instead stuns.
Oh, So you're going to gain a stun the more that you die, like up to 5 times.
Correct. You would need to become a full assassin in order to get that stun.
Ooh, this slash assassin thing is really cool. Do you happen to know, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but do you happen to know if in other MOBAs there are characters that transition? I don't know if there are. I mean, I really don't know much about other MOBAs, but I just love this idea. I think it's so original.
I couldn't say. I really couldn't say. I've played maybe 3 or 4 other heroes in Dota 2,
Yeah.
and they were pretty much straight up what they were.
Right. I mean, it's just a cool. It would take a lot of balancing to make it really work, but I love the thought of it.
Definitely. And this came about mostly because sometimes you lose games just because you don't have enough damage. And once you choose your team, you can't really change that. You're stuck with the damage you have. So it's one of those. I wanted a hero that would give you an out, not guaranteed, but
Right.
the possibility to add the damage you need in order to take back the game.
Yeah, and talk about what it would take for this enemy team even to have to adapt to it. I mean, I feel like there would be a learning curve in the middle of the game where you're like, oh crap, we thought we were winning, but now we have to really play a different way. And maybe that's just the opportunity that your team needs to take over.
Definitely. And there was a lot of talk this week too about Artanis and how to survive Artanis. And it's kind of like that where great, attack Artanis in the beginning of the game all you want because he really can't do much. But I think once he gets this level 16 talent with this shields, you need to stop attacking Artanis. But usually by 16, you're so ingrained in the idea that you've been able to kill him so much, you should
Right.
still be able to kill him now, only to find that that damage is wasted on him because guess what? He got what he needed to do what he should do.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's really, really cool. Love it. All right, well, my second basic over here on the support side is called Bunker Down. And Alexei places a Terran bunker down on the battlefield that 2 friendly heroes can enter. While in the bunker, the players can use their basic abilities and auto attack. The enemy team has to destroy the bunker before the players inside can be attacked.
Ooh, so is it going to look just like the StarCraft bunkers?
Yeah, and as I'm reading this, I'm like, maybe that's really OP. Like being able to do that and to just, yeah, I imagined it would look just like the StarCraft bunkers. Maybe it comes down in some sort of drop ship and it drops down this bunker and 2 people can get into it. Maybe that's way too OP because you have to take it out. Maybe it just has really, really, really small health.
Yeah, and it provides just a little bit of protection for a
Yeah.
brief period of time. Now, would it be terrain that the enemy team couldn't walk over?
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, I think it would be, yeah. Man, maybe that's way too heroic. Like maybe it's right on the brink of, right where if it was terrain that the enemy team couldn't walk over, you could block passageways with it. That sounds really heroic to me. So like throw it down there, load it up with people, and then they have to take it out first before they can even get into the boss or something like that.
Yeah, I like it though. And I mean, if it has low enough health, I don't think it's too heroic at all because it's basically like another little shield, but for 2 people at once.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, you'd have to see how it played in the game, but I love the feel of putting your Marines in those bunkers and then just, watching them tear apart the enemy zerg as they're charging forward. I just always loved that when I was a kid and playing the games and stuff. So I wanted to kind of bring that in, that's the battlefield commander aspect in my head, like being able to place things down on the battlefield and do different things. That's what I was thinking with that basic. So my last basic is called Crossed Wires. This is where you're going to target an enemy hero and immediately invert their movement. In order for them to move forward, they would need to click behind them, and in order for them to move sideways, they'd have to click the opposite direction. This inversion only lasts for a short second, but could give a friendly hero a second chance to escape or distract a hero that is trying to escape themselves.
Ooh, this is kind of wicked.
It's not, yeah. as I'm reading these, I mean, I did this and then I thought I had nailed it, but I'm thinking, is that Alexei enough? You know, like it really isn't. But that ability is just a really weird idea. Like it's almost it's psychotic. Is that the word I'm trying to say? Like where you're controlling.
I don't know. Is it, Jeff?
Maybe I'm going psycho. It's like you're controlling their mind. Maybe this isn't the character for something like that because, you know, that's more of a Kerrigan thing, right? Where you're able to, you know, delve psychotically into.
True. But Alexei did get hold of a brood at one point.
Right.
So he technically, at one point, while infested, did have the ability to control Zerg mind.
Right. So
maybe you could
that's...
argue that he could get into hero minds.
If you were really passionate about this ability, you could really sell it. I mean, you've got one piece of evidence. I mean, I figure it would be really crazy to completely change the way people play, and people would get really used to it at some point. So maybe that's what's stopping Blizzard from creating an ability like this. Not saying this exact ability, but being able to change the way the game plays in that way, where if I click left, I'm actually going to go complete opposite of that direction, only for a short amount of time. And is that a different kind of crowd control? Because you're controlling the enemy team there in a way.
Definitely. If they're not fast enough to pick up on the fact that their controls are inverted for a brief period of time, that chaos is enough to guarantee at least one kill. Or at least it should be enough to guarantee one kill.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't play locked camera, it would be really hard, you know, to be able to go to the side and move around. And anyway, just that's more like a blue sky idea. If you listeners out there have an idea how to bring this into Alexei, shoot it to us in an email, because I want to make this kind of work, but it's a tough thought. What were you thinking for his third basic, Kristen?
This one I'm going with hold position. And it's calling out to the infested Terran located just below the ground. Stukov orders them to hold an enemy in place. Now, initially, this is just a root. It'll just be two nasty little arms that come out and grab feet, root some. Let's go. They move forward. With further infestation, however, it begins dealing damage as more arms shoot out from the ground, arms that are free to slap at the captured enemy.
Slap? That's funny.
Well, I just imagine, you get the two arms grabbing their legs and then extra arms coming up and just whacking at them. So it doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does enough damage to insult them.
No, I like that, and it transitions well into Assassin. It's got that whole octograb feel to it, I bet. Like, these tentacles are coming up and slapping, these heroes that are getting locked down. That's really cool. And I love how, just like Blizzard, these abilities are landing on common keys. Like the E key is what we commonly know as the lockdown key, or the CC key, the one that's controlling other players' movement and things like that, or controlling your own for escape. So I think it fits really well, and I really love the transition into Assassin. I think that is so bogus and cool, and just would play completely different than how the game plays right now. And I'm sure as we get into the heroics, it'll just be even more cool. I cannot wait. Okay, before we get into this, I really want to again thank our patrons over at patreon.com/HeroesForge. And also, if you like the show and you listen to us on iTunes, you can head on over to there and drop us a 5-star review. Make sure you leave us a little note, and that way we can give you a shout out on the show. And thank you personally for supporting us on iTunes as well. All right, Kristen, it is time to do the best part of the show. Let's forge the heroics.
Heroic.
All right, here we go. I'll start this one. My first heroic for the support side, I'm calling infantry weapons. So my first basic was infantry armor. My first heroic is infantry weapons. This ability acts exactly like infantry armor, but instead gives all players in an AoE range a second ability button that will be mapped to their 2 key. When the player activates this ability, they are given a large attack buff for a short amount of time. Unlike the armor buff, this ability only lives on friendly heroes for a select amount of time.
Oh, so again, you're giving the players more responsibility.
Yes, I am. I'm saying if you want that stim drone, now it's not going to be as powerful as stim drone. It's not. That's really powerful and should be a single target. But if you want a buff to your weapons, I am giving you the power. Now you do what you will with it.
Do what you will. So okay, so say they use 2, it's past its cooldown. Do they have to then go back to your range in order to get the 2 activated again? Or is it
Yes.
just one of those, if they're there when you activate this heroic, the 2 is with them until the heroic ends, no matter how far away they get from you?
No, good question. I imagine that it would be your heroic would have to be off of cooldown as Alexei to give people this ability. You give it to them, and once it pops onto your key, you can use it only within a certain amount of time. So maybe it expires after 15 seconds or 10 seconds or something. So you
Okay,
can
so
choose
it's just
when
a
to use it.
one-use kind of thing.
Yep, then you use it, and then once Alexei gets his ult back, he can give it to you again if you're in range.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, again, not a stim drone type of damage done here. We're talking just buffing the damage enough to feel a little more powerful. And that's, for everyone that's in range and that chooses to use it. Now, the roadblock I see obviously coming into this is that what about heroes like Uther that have all of these abilities that they can take that are mapped onto these number keys or wherever you choose to put these abilities on? So, I mean, that would be a hurdle, right? Because you don't want to have to be pressing like 6 or 7 in your game to be able to do things, or if you've got like 300 buttons on your mouse just to play with Alexei, So, I mean, in that theory, maybe it doesn't work, but I want to give the players the ability to choose when they want these buffs.
Yeah, and I mean, let's not make it seem harder than it is, because going into the game, Alexei would be with you, so you should know that he will be giving you buttons, at least one button, so you can at least plan for that. And then, maybe you could ask him in chat if he plans on going with infantry weapons. And
Wait, talking in chat?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, talking to chat, communicating with your teammates. It's a little radical, one step at a time, but you
right.
can always ask somebody what heroic they plan on taking.
Absolutely. And what's funny about that is that usually, I would say probably 80% or more of the time that a team is communicating with each other that I'm on, we usually go on to win the game. So if you're listening to this and you're not a communicator, I'm telling you, start it up and it'll start to feel good when you start calling out lanes or missing or things like that.
But remember, be positive about it. Don't be a
Yes.
jerk, because then you're just going to make everyone mad and they're not going to want to cooperate with you.
Exactly.
If anything, they won't out of spite. At least I do that.
Yes. Totally. All right, that's my first heroic. Let's hear yours.
My first one is called Both Eyes Open. Now, Stukov's aura becomes beams of healing that immediately latch on to all friendly heroes within its range. It provides high amounts of health regeneration, as well as small shields that refresh if broken through with damage. However, this can no longer be used if he reaches full infestation.
So you're wasting a heroic if you're at full infestation and pick this ability?
Yep. There's the potential that if you went healer and you die for a 5th time, you will lose this heroic if you took it. And you don't get to choose the second one. You've just lost your heroic.
Oh man, that's brutal. That is tough. So you've got to make the conscious decision that in order to save my team, I may lose my heroic at some point in this game.
Exactly. And I think it's fair, because if you get to level 10 and you have not died 5 times, chances are the game is going pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what if it just goes south?
Well, you got to take that gamble,
Yeah,
right?
I love
You can't predict everything.
I love it. Yeah, okay. You can't, and you can't. You've got to take the gamble. Like you said, I love the idea. It's very, very cool. And so you're giving shields and health, so it's very powerful, so it's worth the gamble.
Correct. It's kind of like Lily's jugs.
Cool.
In that, most of the time you're probably going to take this because you are a support. So really, you shouldn't ever be in the position where you're going to die 5 times or more. So it should be okay, but it's still, again, it's a gamble because you never know how that late game is going to go.
Then you have to remember, though, that when you lose this heroic, you're at full infestation, so you're going to be doing damage, more damage at that point. So maybe, I mean, I think you're right. It may be fair to do something like that, to, give and take with that. Because if you're going to do a significant more amount of damage with your lockdown and all of your other abilities, I think it's it might be worth taking it.
There's the potential. I like to believe in this. I know it's different. I know it's scary, but sometimes you got to go with what's scary. Like I learned this weekend with Li Ming's Calamity build. That's scary to go in, even though you're squishy. But man, you can delete people if you just believe in your own damage-dealing powers.
I haven't seen or tried that. I mean, I've seen it. It looks pretty intense. I have to try that because it sounds like a really completely different way of playing.
It is. You have to be fierce like you've never been fierce. You have to trust in the fact that you are going to kill somebody, get health back, teleport, do damage, kill somebody, get health back, that kind of thing. You have to believe in your dance.
That's cool. That is really cool. I got to try that. All right, let's talk about second heroics here. My second heroic is called Supply Depot. This ability calls down a supply depot that sets up on the battlefield and essentially gives players an additional healing fountain. This depot stays in play for a short amount of time, and friendly heroes can only drink from it, quote unquote, 1 time. The depot can be destroyed by the enemy team.
Okay, so how big is this heal in that they can only drink 1 time?
Well, I'm thinking it's a healing fountain to heal. Like, it's just an extra healing fountain. So, say you're going for one of the shrines or something, and you set this up in a bush somewhere, and just the team, instead of, having to hearth out or go all the way back to a healing fountain to get back into battle, they can kind of just go right around the corner, tap off on the healing fountain, and come right back into the battle. Maybe it's when the immortals are switching places, or maybe right before you go and hit the top seeds, you could drop this in the middle lane so everybody that's coming from the bottom and going up to the top can just hit it as they're going up.
That's a great idea. And I really like it because it does give you a much needed ability to stay in the fight longer. And having a healing fountain right there could really make or break how a team fight goes.
Well, and again, it's giving the player the ability to heal themselves. Like if you're down, I put this supply depot out for you so you can go and you can, heal yourself or get, I imagine that the supply depot, I know in StarCraft it doesn't necessarily do anything with healing or something like that, but we're going to bend the rules just a little bit for the Nexus and say that maybe inside the supply depot are, stim packs or whatever that can heal you up as you're going into battle. Not necessarily exactly along with the lore of the game, because it's not holding any Vespene gas or whatever that they use for in the game, but still I wanted to give a portable healing fountain because, like I said before, it gives them the option.
It does, and I'm loving this build because I see your Stukov as that old support who's really sick of this BS. He's been doing it for years, and he's done. You know what? Here, you can heal yourself if you want, but if you don't, I gave you the choice, so you can't complain.
Absolutely. Just sitting in the back with a cigarette and a bottle of vodka right behind the thing and just wait. Hey, I gave you the option.
Don't come crying to me if it doesn't work out, son. We're done.
Not come crying to me. And they will. They will. We didn't lay down the supply depot fast enough, or blah,
in
blah,
the right
blah.
place.
Yeah. I'm trying to reduce the amount of salt in Heroes of the Storm. One character at a time. Okay, Kristen, let's hear your second heroic ability.
The second one, we're going with something called Morning of the Marauders, because Dawn of the Dead was already taken. Now, Calling forth the power of the Zerg now coursing through his veins, an army of infested Terrans erupt from the ground. Each unit is ranged and locks onto the nearest enemy hero. As soon as one of these infested Terran is killed, another erupts in its place until the duration of the spell is over. This can only be chosen if he has died at least once. The more infested he is, the stronger each infested Terran's damage.
Booyah! So that's the other end of the spectrum here. So we're talking the healing ultimate and the damage ultimate.
Exactly. And I think the Morning of the Marauders is a bit more forgiving because you can take it if you've only died once. It's never really forbidden to you because there's a good chance by 10 you've probably died at least once.
Right.
But yeah.
Or if not, you could just go die once and then...
Just run into an enemy tower and boom.
Again,
now I get my damage ult.
You're basically doing a mini draft inside of your game because you have to make these decisions like at 10 where you're thinking, wow, am I going to make it to 5 deaths? Am I going to, be able to use this heroic even if I don't die? Is it going to be worth me running in there and blowing myself up so that I can get this heroic? I mean, but it sounds like it's going to do a serious amount of damage.
It should. I mean, and I like to imagine because the infested Terran are basically zombies. And what's a main caveat of a zombie movie? Zombie hordes that just don't stop. They keep coming and coming and coming because there are just so many dead. So we don't realize how many Terrans died in the field of battle and lay underneath the Nexus battlegrounds. But Alexei will show us.
Yes, he will. But how many Zerg died, Kristen?
Too many to count. Let's not bring that up.
One single tear.
Because, I mean, how many times has Kerrigan played this game and all of the Zerg and Zagara's Zergs?
Right.
It's too much.
You're over here talking about how many Terran died. I'm thinking how many Zerg have died out there.
Well, remember, what is it? 4 Zerg to 1 Terran, maybe 2 Zerg to 1 Terran?
Right. I mean, that's cool. It's really, really neat. Again, I can't harp on it enough saying how cool this would be if you could change in the middle. And the ability, I mean, there are abilities that are similar to this in the game, right? I mean, that have a similar sort of latch-on kind of feeling to them.
That they do. They do.
So, I mean, it's not unknown or unseen by players of the game, to have something like this, but do you want to take it or not? And I love those talent choices. I hate falling into the meta picks for characters and heroes in the game, or even the meta picks for what talents or what builds should I go. I love having options. Another thing that really bothers me when you're in the game is if someone says you completely built wrong or something like that. You don't know the play style of these other people. Maybe there are some talents that are actual garbage, that just need to be buffed or changed in some way. But for the most part, people, I feel like, fall into these gulches of people building a character a certain way, and it drives me crazy sometimes because I want those choices. I want to get to 10 and take medevac dropship and not get completely booted from the game. I want to have fun choices like that.
I hear you 100%. I've gotten flack for a lot of that, but you know what? You're right. These heroes, nobody in general, these heroes probably better than the other people do because generally we play the heroes that we know best because we're comfortable with them. We know their talent choices. We know how they all interact. But at the same time, we can't forget people don't like change. So
Right.
when they find their rut, we love sitting in our ruts because it's comfortable, it's familiar, it feels good. You don't have to think differently. Just play like you always do, regardless of if you have to change your play style to win.
Right. No, you're right. You're very, very right. All right, let's move on. These are 2 really completely different builds. Let's move on to specialty skins for Alexei Stukov. Kristen, what are you thinking for a specialty skin?
I'm going with a Two-Face build. Half monster, half human. Two-Face Stukov wears his corruption equally with his humanity, though at times one wins out over the other. A good person at heart, he still understands that sometimes you need to become what you hate in order to triumph.
What outfit is he wearing as this? Like, what's he looking like?
Well, I love the Batman the Animated Series
Oh, yeah.
Two-Face, but we can't forget the beauty that was Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face.
Beauty.
That it was a masterpiece. Just I'd never seen anything more garish in my life. So
Right.
maybe you can switch between the two types of Two-Faces, but I would go with Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face.
Okay, I'm thinking that there's obviously going to be 3 tints to this skin. So the first skin is going to be the animated series skin. The second tint is going to be the Tommy Lee Jones, and then the third would have to be the Dark Knight.
Yes.
Like
Yeah, that was a very good look.
Something ultra realistic, you know.
Yeah, something that actually looks menacing more so than cartoony.
Right, and the infested Terran, like with that ability. I mean, I'm just imagining all the different things that they could be.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, they'd have to be little henchmen. So I guess, could you imagine if the type, one of the 3 skins, each one had different minion looks to match the type of dent?
I wish the type of dent, the type of Harvey Dent. I wish I could draw because I would only know, you know, like how hard it would be. And we're just sitting over here like, yeah, it'll have 3 completely different tints and each tint will be a completely different skin.
Just code, right?
Just code. And then,
Just
you know,
type it in there.
the minions, they'll just all be different Batman characters.
Yeah, you know, and it's randomly generated too, so you got to get one of those little RNGs going. So it's easy, right? It's what every programmer learns.
Absolutely. My skin is not nearly as cool, but have you seen the film K-19 with Harrison Ford?
Yes.
Yeah, he's like a Russian naval commander for a submarine, like a submarine commander, and his name is actually Alexei Stukov. So I was thinking, how cool would it be if Alexei Stukov in the game had some sort of naval commander look?
I like it. I really like it because, again, you're with the human Alexei. You are not infested Alexei. This is Commander Alexei at the height of his military pride.
Yeah, with the big fuzzy, you know, Russian commander hats, you know, for like in the snow and stuff. I think that'd be really cool. Or if you ever played Warhammer 40K, there's a whole section of characters inside of that, or a whole race of Iron Guard that are Imperial Guard rather, that are based in that like snowy landscape, like the Valhalla guys that wear those big long coats and the big, you know, fuzzy hats for the Imperial Guard. It was really cool. So that was my thought on that. But
I love it. Now this one, I would expect we wouldn't have direct Harrison Ford quotes because there's probably some copyright involved. But could you imagine, like with the Leoric, the Space Invader Leoric skin, they've got Vader-ish quotes. If we had Ford-ish quotes with Vostokov.
Man, his accent is atrocious in that film too. I mean, it would be something of the movies if we put that in there. It'd be something interesting. Speaking of Leoric, this is off topic kind of, but it's about skins. Did you happen to see the tweet that somebody came up with the janitor Leoric skin or whatever it was?
Yes. Yes, and I think we all agree that that has to be a reality. I mean, it's totally thought out. So all Blizzard would need to do is just implement the graphics.
Yeah, and the Entomb was like a bathroom stall. It was so good. Check it out on Twitter, listeners. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I'm sure you can find it on Google if you just type in like Leoric janitor or something. It's very good. Well done to whoever did that, because that is way better than Alexei Stukov from K-19. It's a very good idea. Okay, I definitely think that after all of that, we can say that this hero was forged.
Hero Forged.
Kristen, what a great idea over on your side for Alexei Stukov's build, being able to transform from a support to an assassin based on how many times you die within the game. I mean, with some really great basic and heroic abilities that change while you play, too, that would alter the way that the friendly team plays and also force the enemy team to change the way that they play based on your level of infestation, holding people down, locking them with tentacles that come out of the ground. You've got corrosive blasts going off that end up doing massive amount of damage and stunning if you're fully affected, and then auras, giving people these auras that take damage for them or heal them as well. I mean, and these two heroics are just awesome because based on where you are in the game, you know, playing as the more support end of it, you would take a heroic that you could possibly lose but was really powerful. And then on the other end, if you've already died a bunch of times, taking that heroic that makes you even more assassin-y is just a really cool thought. On my end, we had some different thoughts. So I was building a support over on my end. Tactician, being able to give people the ability to look at the minimap and see what all is going on, giving players the ability to heal themselves or quote-unquote heal themselves through shields, adding ability buttons for them to do that, calling down a bunker for players to jump into, giving, you know, crossed wires to the enemy and having them move and direct in different directions that they're not necessarily wanting to go, a kind of fear in a way, and then giving them the ability to give themselves buffs and even giving them an additional healing fountain. Here are all of the tools for you to succeed. I'm going to sit back here and watch you try, is basically what I was doing.
Yeah, and I think it works because we have to remember again that your Alexei is this one moment in time Alexei. It's not an Alexei that tries to span the course of his story. This is him before he was infested, before he got betrayed, at the height of his military power. And I like the fact that he basically encompasses Terran StarCraft with everything he can do. He is StarCraft.
That's right. And
this build is great. Yeah.
You're playing StarCraft. I mean, you're laying things down on the battlefield. I even imagine as you pull it out, you know, like as you place it down, maybe the little tile set shows up as it's coming down. Just really feeling StarCrafty.
Definitely. And what if, too, he's one of those heroes that never touches the ground and said he's up in a battle cruiser the whole time. And there's some way you can implement him telling his troops what to do.
Yeah, that would be Stukov for sure. I mean, that's something really cool to think about, and I hope they come up with something like that. And I just had another thought about your build. You know how a lot of people thought that when Greymane came out, he was going to be, you know, human in the beginning and then transformed to Worgen would be his heroic ability, right? So then when they implemented that into each one of his, you know, basic attacks and to be able to go in and out of it and in and out of it, that was really groundbreaking and really cool that they did that. With your build, I feel like that could be a really cool, groundbreaking idea that, you know, brings this hero into the game and completely changes the way we play. So that was my closing thought on that. I mean, great builds, and this character should be in the game at some point, but we say that every week.
We do, but we love these heroes. And what's so wrong with loving our own builds? Because we put time and thought into these guys, so they mean a lot to us because we've invested in them, right? So I can only imagine what the Blizzard team feels when they release heroes, because I don't even know how long the process is for hero creation then is. And so going off of that, that's why I really don't like people freaking out when the team releases a hero, because it's just like, guys, they worked really hard on this hero. Give it time to find its place in the game before you start saying they stink or they're silly or just should be taken out. GG uninstall Blizzard.
Yeah. Blizzard. If you uninstall Blizzard, we're all screwed because then nobody can play the game.
We wake up and Heroes is gone one day. They just packed up and they went, you know what?
Tweet that says we
right,
did what
guys.
you said. We took your advice. We uninstalled. Have a great night. Oh man, and you know I totally agree that that it's something that we're proud of, and putting this show on is a ton of fun. And we know that you guys have ideas out there, and we want to hear your ideas. We want you to send them in to us. We've gotten some seriously cool builds over the last couple of days, and we want more. So if you have an idea for a character that you would like to see in Heroes Forge out here, or that you'd like to see in Heroes of the Storm, send us the character's name. If you have an idea for a build for a character in Heroes of the Storm, send it to us too. I mean, we have a ton of really cool segments on the show that we want to help fill out. So if you have any ideas, make sure you send them to our email address, which is contactheroesforge@gmail.com. You can also hit up our contact page on our website, which is heroesforge.club. Over on the website, you can see all of the postings for the other 27 episodes that we've done. I mean, we've hit some StarCraft characters for the last 3 weeks. I think we're going to move into some other Blizzard IPs, and it's going to be really cool coming up. We've got some really great ideas and some guests lined up that we're really excited about. So make sure that you tune into the show live. If you'd like to watch the show, we're on twitch.tv/Amove TV every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Pacific. And again, we're part of the Amove TV podcasting and entertainment network. For more great esports and video game podcasts, make sure you head on over to amove.tv. Really great content over there. You can follow us on Twitter at Forge Heroes, and you can check out our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/HeroesForge. And don't forget to look at the show on iTunes or your favorite podcasting app. We're on most of them. If there's one that we're not on, let us know. Shoot us an email, and we'll try to do our best to get on there. And again, if you'd like to support the show, you can support us at patreon.com/HeroesForge. And again, a big thank you to our existing patrons out there, and especially to DJM for becoming our latest Heroes Forge patron. Kristen, where can people find you in the interwebs?
People can find me at Dream Destroyer, that is DRMDESTRYR, over at Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and then my health and fitness blog, battletobebetter.weebly.com.
How's the health and fitness blog going?
It's
tough
going
time.
Great. I think I've discovered the optimal diet for what I'm trying to achieve personally. So that's been really fun. But this week, we went over what progress pics are. Why should you take progress photos? That kind of stuff. It was a very cool discussion.
Progress pictures, yeah. Because, I mean, I bet that's a little bit of motivation. I'll have to check that out. Everybody check out that Battle to Be Better post, because I'm sure it's really cool. My question to you is, it's a really hard time to be battling to be better. I mean, we're out here, it's summer, it's beautiful outside, people are out by the pool, barbecuing, grilling, drinking beers, like having all this time, all this fun time, and it's tough to be the person that's out there being like, no thank you, I'm having water.
Is it though, because of how hot it is? Aren't you craving water? And let's face it, 1 beer, 2 beers even, not that bad. Not that bad at all. It's when you're just pounding them back one after the other. And you're right with the cooking and the grilling. That's awesome. But people are also cooking and grilling veggies along with chicken breasts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to not partake, but you can be a bit more aware of the choices you make. So instead of going for the hot dog or the hamburger, go for some of the chicken, or go for the kebab with the pepper and the broccoli or the carrots or whatever's on it.
Very true. And I guess it's self-control that I lack.
That's always one too.
That's another thing. Maybe I need some progress pics.
We all fail with that.
I need some progress pics of the downfall to incite change, I think.
Everything works for somebody.
Before we get into more nutrition talk here on Heroes Forge, I'm going to go ahead and call the show there. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And we will catch you all in the real world.